It's my pleasure to be with you again to present the 2008-2009 Environmental Commissioner's Annual Report to the Legislative Assembly. My report this year is called Building Resilience, where the term resilience is used with a connotation describing our complex natural and economic systems in a manner I thought would be unfamiliar to everyday vernacular. But to my surprise, the term is emerging in more common use, most recently last week in a newspaper editorial. Resilient systems can experience disruption and disturbance and come back to function in their familiar manner. If resilience is lost, the familiar system collapses and emerges as something else, which is governed by different rules or conditions, often with undesirable consequences. Perhaps the precipitous collapse of the Grand Banks cod fishery is the most well-known example in recent times. It is a difficult concept. My theme calls for us to build resilience. But how do we do this? How do we know what resilience is? Well, perhaps it's easier to define it in the negative. Is it building resilience to follow agricultural practices that allow 6 tons or more of topsoil per hectare per year to be eroded away from our streams, into our streams and lakes, with the natural rate of replacement of soil only 1 ton per year? Why do we call this erosion a tolerable soil loss? And more significantly, why aren't we measuring and monitoring how bad the real situation is? Is it building resilience to approve pits and quarries on a lot-by-lot basis until the landscape looks like Swiss cheese, while refusing to consider the cumulative impacts of those multiple disturbances to the landscape ecosystem? Why doesn't M&R consider its statement of environmental values when approving applications for such sites? Are we building a resilient planning system when we fail to plan on a landscape basis generally in southern Ontario, and we watch with helpless dismay as our system of woodlots, the last remnants of our native forests, disintegrates within our generation? And while I remain confident that getting out of coal burning is a step towards a more resilient energy system, questions remain about replacing coal with vast extractions of biofiber from our northern forests. Will forest ecosystems that have branches, tops, and culled trees removed from the forest floor during harvesting be as resilient as those where only logs are taken? Will the soil retain its vital nutrients? I don't know, but the magnitude of the commitment of biomass necessary to offset coal begs for careful research and thoughtful biofuels policy. Is it building resilience to sit by and allow our amphibians, that's our frogs, toads, salamanders, and newt populations, to decline and disappear without even the most modest efforts by Ontario ministries to stem the decline? If amphibian species continue to disappear, what does that portend to other aspects of our biodiversity? Is it building resilience to repeat the errors of the past by expanding or even continuing the operation of a major landfill on a geologically unsuitable area? The Richmond landfill is in a fractured limestone area with complex hydrological conditions such that it's difficult and perhaps impossible to determine the movement and impact of leachate. After reviewing the situation in response to an EBR application, I recommend that the Richmond landfill be immediately closed. And finally, how can we reach sound decisions on how to create more resilient systems if we shut the public out of our consultation processes using fear and economic intimidation? The tactics of seeking excessive cost awards and launching lawsuits against individuals participating in public planning processes has crept into our culture from more litigious jurisdictions. It threatens to exacerbate the asymmetry of power and resources between proponents and objectors that already plagues our planning system. Like Quebec, we need legislation to rein in this contagion. Thank you. I have any questions?